All right, to northeast Syria now, where Kurdish-led forces say Turkey has violated a permanent ceasefire. President Trump just announced the truce yesterday after weeks of Turkey's military onslaught against Kurdish troops in the region.
The president also said that he would lift sanctions against Turkey and praise the country's leader even as he continues to attack the people who fought alongside Americans against ISIS. Paula Reid takes a closer look. So Paula Reid is joining us now from the White House. So Paula, some of President Trump's comments on Syria appear to be aimed at his political base as, he heads into the 2020 election fight. Are they with him on this? Because he took a lot of criticism, at least from Republican lawmakers, for pulling troops out of the area to begin with. What about his base?
That's right. The president faced a wave of bipartisan criticism for his abrupt withdrawal from northern Syria. But I was with the president last week at a rally in Dallas. And during that speech, the biggest applause line of the night is when the president announced that he was bringing U.S. troops home. It was a massive arena, thousands and thousands of people packed the place. The roof just blew off the place when he talked about this, erupted in cheers. He had to stop talking and erupted into cheers of USA, USA. And what's so significant is the president has subsequently referenced that moment as part of the reason he feels he needs to make these moves in this part of the world. So it does appear that he believes he is making good on his campaign promise to pull U.S. resources, U.S. troops out of foreign entanglements. He always says at his campaign rallies, he almost always hits this point, that he was elected president of the United States, not president of the world, and that the U.S. military cannot police the globe. It's a very popular talking point, but I'd never seen it be quite as popular as when he referenced this move at his rally last week. He's admitted this is on his mind. So it does appear that even the way he crafted his speech yesterday, talking about how this was a victory in his ability to get other countries to share the burden, it appears that he was directing that at his base. He just failed to mention the fact that one of the countries stepping up to the plate is Russia.
And so, Paula, another point that was made earlier in an article by Politico suggests that this could hurt the president with evangelicals. Why would that be?
It's possible. The article details some concerns by some evangelical leaders about what this means for potential religious persecution in the region, what this could portend for Israel, the president's commitment to them. But this may be a little overwritten. Evangelicals, particularly white evangelicals in the U.S., have shown that they're willing to stand by President Trump through a lot. They seem to be able to parse, I'm going to quote Kellyanne Conway, one of his advisors, what offends them personally with what actually directly impacts them personally. So a lot of these evangelicals believe that no matter what the president does in his personal life or what kind of language he uses in the public sphere, they are willing to support him because ultimately the work he does, especially when it comes to federal judges and putting pro-life judges, really stacking the courts with pro-life judges, that is incredibly important. So we'll see what happens in Syria if it turns out that religious persecution becomes a big problem in that part of the world. It could cost the president some evangelical votes, but the idea that white evangelical voters are going to go out and vote for Elizabeth Warren or other pro-choice candidates, that seems like a bit of a stretch.
Paula, one of the sort of glaring omissions from the president's statement yesterday was that he talked about what was supposed to be a permanent ceasefire as if it was something that was negotiated by the U.S. But in fact, it was negotiated by Russia and Turkey. He didn't even mention Russia. A lot of people have warned, critics have warned that, when the U.S. pulls out of these areas, they leave a vacuum and another country is going to get into that vacuum, maybe somebody who doesn't have our best interest in mind. It looks like now this area is going to be policed by Turkey and Russia. What's the White House response to people and critics who are concerned about that?
Well, as you just noted, the president made no mention of the fact that the U.S. wasn't at the negotiating table when Turkey and Russia got together to negotiate a ceasefire in Syria. He still, though, claimed credit for it. He said this was something that his administration did, that the U.S. can take credit for, and made no mention of Russia. And that has been consistently the messaging coming out of the White House. They're just not acknowledging the fact that Russia is the one stepping up to fill this vacuum, or the problems that could potentially pose for the U.S. and these outstanding questions about whether Turkey or Russia is up to the task of trying to keep the ISIS fighters who are currently in custody, about 10,000 of them over there, whether they are going to protect them the same way the U.S. would want them to.
All right, Paula, thank you very much.